doing well in the Broad Top area. Pastor Jared here. Today, I thought we would continue to talk about blessing. Yesterday we talked about being a blessing to others, and that kind of connects back with being a Barnabas people. But today I thought I'd share with you from Galatians 6:2. It just says, this is what Paul says in Galatians 6:2. Bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. Bear one another's burdens. That's not something we like to do all the time, is it? We don't want to have to bear someone else's burden. Now, Paul, in this passage, he's talking about a couple different things, but I think he uses those as an example of how of a burden to bear. One of them has to do with when someone is caught in sin and how to restore them, and that is a burden to bear. And then the other one is this idea when someone thinks that they are bigger than they really are, thinks they're more than they are. And sometimes that's a burden to bear. But I think when we look at this idea of bearing each other's burdens, when we think about the example of Christ, bearing each other's burdens and is part of what it means to be part of the community of Christ. And it's one way that we can bless other people. As I was looking at some of this, as I was looking at the words that were used, the word for burden, it's not this thing, it's essentially this large weight that is carried over a considerable amount of time. It's, one of the commentators talked about the Old English word that we get tote from is related to that idea that we tote something, we carry a weight for a considerable distance. And so when it says bear each other's burdens, it's not saying, oh yeah, when someone's dealing with something, just, give them a pat on the back, but and then move on. This idea that we bear it for some time. And one of the ways that we can be a blessing in that way is not by always, as soon as someone complains about something, giving them a solution, but instead we might give them a solution, we might help them, but also enter into that burden with them and carry that with them and try to help them along the way and not get frustrated when things don't, get fixed instantly, but realize that none of us have it all together, and so we are in this together. Just because we don't have things figured out doesn't mean someone else does, but it also doesn't mean that if we have something figured out that's the exact same solution to everyone's situation that might be a little bit similar but also different. Sometimes the best thing we can do is be present and to bear that burden. I know when I worked as a chaplain for several years, and I realized the power of the ministry of presence. There were many times that I counseled families who had just lost a loved one, and there weren't always words I could say, but I could be there, and I could just be there as a person, and I could bear the burden of their grief with them and share that with them. And I think sometimes we need to do that more. And we need to seek to truly help people process through things as they're struggling, and be willing to be inconvenienced with that, because that takes time, that takes effort, but we can be a blessing through that. And I think we can be a great blessing as we seek to bear others' burdens. Just something to think about today. Hope you're all doing well.